Good afternoon, and welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarlane's Book Chat Thursday edition. I am W.D. Foster Graham. I am the book review editor for Insight News, and I will be your host for today. The Conversation with Al McFarlane covers the diverse, all aspects of the African and African American diaspora, providing stimulating, inspiring, robust, and informative conversation. We are shooting for 2,000 subscribers. So if you are enjoying our content, please like and share and subscribe to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. Today's guest author, I had the honor of meeting at the Minnesota Black Authors Expo event back in November of last year. His brother Darryl Harvey, and he is a native of Chicago. And during high school, he became interested in poetry. He attended Northern Illinois University and worked on his writing style. Years after graduation, he published his first book, Loving a Black Woman, which received rave reviews. He later became a children's author and wrote the Sunflower series, which focuses on social emotional learning. And after a few years of speaking with Black parents about the lack of resources in finding books that included Black children, he got the idea to create an event for that population. And in 2019, he created the Black Child Book Fair, which promotes literacy in Black communities and travels across the country. So it is my great pleasure to bring to you for today's Book Chat Thursday, Darryl Harvey. Greetings, Darryl.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you?
Excellent, good, and very good. And I appreciate you for bringing one of my favorite topics is children's books.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that introduction. And yes, children's literature is a passion of mine. I began that journey quite a while ago. Now, roughly, oh my goodness, around 15 years or so ago. And it specifically for African American children, it has become my mission to try to bring more content, more stories and characters for African American children to read about and learn about.
And it's needed now more than ever.
Absolutely.
Darryl, tell us about how you grew up and where and how, and those role models that you looked up to, the people that inspired you.
Well, I grew up the west side of Chicago during the 70s and 80s in a small family, I guess, nice sized family, mom and dad and a big sister, two younger brothers. But during the 70s in the west side of Chicago, that was growing up on the west side of Chicago is a rough, is a rough walk. Yeah, absolutely. You definitely learn a lot of things about yourself. It was tough neighborhoods, but also thanks to my parents, I developed discipline and a strong work ethic and a want to learn. I was a kid that got inspired by comic books to read. So I was thrilled by the adventures of Spider-Man and the Avengers and stuff like that. And, I really got into that and the adventures on the cartoon series and all that. So my imagination has been, or always has been, active as far as storytelling and wanting to see the good guys win. And later I got into mythology as well. So I've always had a vivid imagination, so that really helps when it comes to writing.
Okay. Is that how you
And
begin your? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
normal childhood, into all kinds of sports and things like that. But I definitely was interested, or I would say comic books started my interest in my imagination becoming larger than just what was in front of me.
Hey, hey, I'm one of those ones, baby boomer that I am. I had the comic books of Superman and Batman and Green Lantern and the Flash and all those books piled
Hmm.
up in the house. So I get it, definitely get it. But is that how you begin your writing career?
No, so going into my senior year of high school, one of my English teachers finally exposed us to poetry. And so I thought, wow, poetry seems kind of cool.
Hey.
And so I tried to write my first couple of poems in my senior year of high school, trying to impress some girl. And
Uh-huh.
and I did not get the girl, but I got the gift.
Mm.
So moving on into college, I really began to try to develop it. Took several English courses and started trying to develop just more so my vocabulary and also a writing style. And of course, started reading some other poets like Langston Hughes and things of that nature. So after college, many years later, actually, uh, I had this, notebook of poetry, and I said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I challenged myself to actually publish that first book, "Loving a Black Woman," and I did it. I went through so many different things as far as the mistakes that you make not knowing about the publishing industry. That's a whole conversation itself. But finally, I had that book in my hand, and I just grassroots went out and started trying to sell it. And luckily for me, all those years ago, it has taught me so many different lessons that have put me in a much better position where I am today. Currently 5 published books of poetry, and I think 11 published books for children.
And that is fantastic. So I give you my hat tip. And so I would
Appreciate
ask you, so what will you consider your writing style is?
it for in poetry or for children.
Well, we'll start with poetry and then we'll go to children.
So in poetry, I I wanted to be early on in my career. I wanted to be this fantastic romantic poet. So I
Oh,
wrote romance and a little eroticism as well.
mm-hmm.
So it can get spicy, so to speak. It can get spicy. And there's a little political. I did write one book called "Open Season: Growing Up Black in America" that talks about the things that have gone on the in Black culture. Everything from what people do to us to what we do to each other. And so it truly is straight from the heart, straight from the innermost parts of me, of things that I have seen growing up as a Black man. Also, I have worked in social services, so things I've seen as a social worker in Chicago, all that in one book. And I think it's a very powerful book.
So, so when it comes to what your writing style for children's books, is that included in that? Is this where we're talking about poems?
So that's poems. For
Okay.
children's, I tried to create some informative, educational, and yet fun characters and stories. So in every children's book that I have written, a child I try to write for a particular age group, and something that I think that they'll have fun reading, but they'll also learn something from.
That is so true, so true. Now, I've had feedback from many different sources that when it came to Black boys, one of the major reasons that they've fallen behind in the reading is because they didn't see characters that looked like them. Would you care to expound on that?
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons, the main reason, that I created the Black Child Book Fair is, parents telling me, hey, it's hard for us to find books that have Black faces in it. And it turns out that I checked, did a little research, and there was this study that I looked at from the University of Wisconsin in Madison, 2018. And in that particular study, it said that you are more likely to see children's books that have animals in them before you see Black children. At that time, they reported, I believe, only 10% of mainstream children's books had Black faces in them. And for other races, Hispanics, Native Americans, etc., it's lower than 10%. So your higher percentages go to Caucasian kids and animals. So I said to myself, I've got to do something. I believe that I can do something that could increase visibility for Black characters, for Black children's books. And so I created the Black Child Book Fair in Chicago. In 2019 was our first event, and it was incredibly successful. And from that, I just said, hey, Chicago isn't the only city where there are Black parents looking for books. And from there, year by year, we increased the number of cities that I went to. And so now here we are 6 years later, 2025, more than likely going to do somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 15 cities this year, including Minneapolis.
Yeah. Yes, you mentioned the fact that Black Child Book Fair is coming to Minneapolis in May.
Yes, sir. May 3rd, Saturday, May 3rd at Sankofa.
Great. Well, hey, trust and believe. Okay, you heard it here, viewers. Black Child Book Fair, mark it on your calendar, May 3rd at Sankofa. And we would definitely, hey, you're looking for children's books? Hey, in addition, hey, the ones we already have here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and those that are coming to us courtesy of Brother Darryl Harvey.
Yes, sir.
Now, I can remember, like I said, I was born in the 1950s. And in my neighborhood, one of my favorite places to go was the public library. And that was my second home. And I can remember, going through the children's books and yeah, did not see a black face anywhere, whether that was at the library or at school. So, what can um, parents and other educators do so far as getting more black children's books in the public libraries?
So you got to let your librarians know, um, if you have a specific book, a title, an author in mind, let them know that, hey, this book needs to be in the library. I want to support this book in the library, uh, because there's a process. The libraries have, I don't want to say gatekeepers, but they have people who are assigned to purchase books and have them in the library. So if your favorite author, or that book is not in your library, go to your librarians and tell them, hey, I want you to carry this book.
That is true because it takes and it probably takes people to come and demand, I want to see these in here. Um, and as a matter of fact, just an FYI for you, Darryl, the Minnesota Library Association has on its website a anti-racism resources list of Black authors, resources, and Black authors. That was supplied by yours truly to get more diversity in the libraries. Sometimes you have to start at the top and talk to the directors regarding, representation in those library systems. And yes, he says your book is on that list.
All right.
Yeah.
Glad to
So,
hear.
so that being said too, tell us about your mentors. When you're going through college and high school, so far as your literary journey.
Well, going through college, I specifically remember I took a couple of classes in poetry, taught by the same professor of Poetry 1 and Poetry 2 class. And he was interesting because, there was a large, nice sized class of wannabe poets in there. And we're, submitting our work and we're reading our work, for him to give his opinion on and grade and everything. And this particular instructor, he would slash. He would tell you, people come in with supremely long poems and everything, and he'd be like, "What is all of that for? You don't need this, you don't need that." So to this day, I do not write pages and pages calling it one poem. I hey, I try to be very descriptive of what I'm saying so the reader can see what I'm saying quickly. And trying to build the point without pontificating. Yeah. And I speak that way as well. I'm not one that goes on and on. I try to get to the point.
There you go. There you go. So tell us about My Little Brothers.
Well, My Little Brothers is one of the books in my children's catalog. And it actually talks about, the things that go on being a big brother with your little brothers. And so I had two little brothers. And recently, in the last few years, one of my brothers passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry to
Yeah.
hear that, man.
My youngest brother passed away in 2021, actually. It's crazy that it's been so long already. And as a matter of fact, his birthday was just 2 days ago. And so I was inspired to write about us. Like I said, I have two younger brothers. And so I wrote about my experiences being a big brother and us growing up together and the kind of things that we would do together. So, of course, there's play and there's not play because brothers fight, brothers argue, and brothers sometimes don't get along. But for the most part, we get along. But being the big brother, you have to look out, you have to teach, you have to protect, and you have to deal with it when they don't want you to teach and protect. Yeah, so all of that is in My Little Brothers. It's definitely a memoir, so to speak, but it's a fun book for children just to see how, especially for boys, to see how your experience with your brothers isn't unique, but this is the way it looks. I think for a healthy brother relationship.
That's so true. Are you the oldest?
Well, we had a sister older than me,
Oh,
and then me, and then two boys after me.
okay. I read it, so I was wondering about that when you described the dynamics. Because yes, I am the oldest. I have a younger brother and sister. So you get that.
Yeah,
Definitely get that. So, um, one thing, there's this quote that I heard from Shirley Chisholm. Especially you talk about in these days and times when she says, if you're not given a seat at the table, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. What does that say to you?
yeah. That means, well, in my opinion, you there is a table, and if you have the desire to be a part of the conversation, you make your way in. If you're not invited, you want to be there, create a way, make your way.
There you go. There you go. Now, one thing I think about this, because yeah, I published 7 novels, and just to piggyback, 2 of my novels are romance novels. So when you talked about those poems, I said, aha, yes. So, but the thing is, kind of describe what's different about publishing a children's book versus, say, a novel or a nonfiction book, or what are the challenges or things unique to publishing children's books?
Largely, you have to know what you're talking about. Say, for instance, me with my children's books, and I think this is true for a lot of people. They're trying to teach something, and the worst thing in the world would be to try to teach something and put it on in print and have people read it, and it'd be wrong.
Mm. Out.
Because, yeah, that is I think number one, because us children's authors, we go to schools, we present our work in front of teachers, and I have seen teachers go, hey, this is incorrect. From writing names of characters that are not capitalized, that's a big deal. You might not think it is, but let a teacher or a librarian take a look at that book and see that they'll point it out and they'll bust you out.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to think about the cost and time to correct that mistake in a book that's already been printed.
Whoa, yes.
So I think number one would be knowing what you're talking about in your story, in your writing. That's number one. And also, and this is true though for any book, just making sure that it's edited correctly, because those little mistakes will show up and they will bite you in the butt.
Mm.
And people will think you're not professional. I'm sorry, that's a very weird school bell.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, another thing is, with to add to that, uh, it's collaboration so far as an illustrator.
Yeah.
Tell us more, because one thing, I guess children are very visual.
Yeah. And I think when I first went into the idea of writing a children's book, I was looking for someone who I thought could partner and actually put my thoughts into a vision that was really reflective of the story and the characters. And so I just happened to run across a guy who I thought, you know, could do that. And I have been complimented several times from readers, parents, teachers, whatever, that they really enjoy the artwork in my books. So, as I was saying to you, when you make that move, look at quite a few different illustrators and see if there's a style that meets what you envision in your mind, what your character should look like. But you have to remember too, sometimes I think some illustrators make the mistake of thinking that they wrote the book themselves, and it should, a particular picture or whatever should go the way that they want it to go, not the way that you want it to go.
Mm-hmm.
There are clashes.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. So, and so, would you be considered sort of like an independent author, or have you gone with a publishing company,
I am
or
an
had you have your? Yeah, go ahead.
I am an independent author.
Indeed.
I have
So,
been asked to publish other people, but I have not made that move just yet.
mm,
It's more than a notion to be the director of the Black Child Book Fair and organize events across the country without adding being a publisher as well.
oh, yeah, because it's work. Yeah, and I guess we have to be very what's the have that work life balance.
Exactly.
Exactly. And so,
Yeah.
um, one and I know getting back to the thing about when I was seeing uh, characters that didn't look like me, but then what how do we address the fact when we have authors that's in a culture different from ours writing our stories? How or see how do we address that, or how do we counteract that?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, anybody can have an imagination and write whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess it really depends upon, if their story is a positive thing, or is it a negative thing? And
Mm-hmm.
if it's so offensive that, other people shouldn't see it. And once that is done, there has to be an awareness that this work is out there and needs to be either A, promoted, or B, shut down.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it all depends upon the work. And, Yeah, it depends upon the work and how people react to it. I know that I don't really think, though, as far as, let's say, African Americans are concerned, that there's really a whole lot of other people that are writing books with African Americans in them, if we're speaking about children's in particular, because if it were, um, the gap in these studies wouldn't be so far.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the report that I referenced earlier was from 2018, but I think here we are, 7 years later. Uh, I still don't think that number has increased from 10%. It might have increased to 12 or 13, but still, that's not a lot. When you're talking from 100%.
Mm. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so
And
there are independent authors growing every day. There are more and more independent authors, people publishing books more and more every day. But for them to find their way, so to speak, to being carried in a bookstore or being in a position to be seen by the public. A lot of people go put their stuff on Amazon and think they're going to become millionaires overnight or whatever. That's not happening.
mm-mm.
Amazon, I guess, is a way to be seen, but it's become oversaturated because everybody's going there.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time you're seen, I think uh, people who are on the internet have probably gone through so many books before they've seen yours.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a hard hustle being an independent children's author. I myself don't just go to my events. I go to other events as well to promote my work. I go to schools to promote my work, African festivals,
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of stuff. So it's not easy.
No, because I found that no. When it comes from what I feedback I've gotten by other Black authors of children's books, no, we didn't go into it to get rich. I think we went to get it to educate, to engage, that sort of thing. When I think about that, um, so my next question would be this in terms of the books. Now you have the books. Just how can I know school can only do so much, and when it comes to Black children's books, no, that still says there's a long way to go. But what about those as parents can do at home, so far as continuing to encourage our children in terms of literacy and reading? Go ahead.
I think, honestly, in this day and age, you would almost have to make it mandatory to have reading time. Uh, Unfortunately, technology has, as much as it's supposed to have eased our lives, has also become a detractor from the old school. I got a book in my hand reading. Uh, the things, the video games have. I would say is almost addictive. No, it's not almost. It is. Video games have become an addiction for children, and children. I actually work with middle school kids, and little Johnny is yawning at first period or late for first period because he's been up 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning playing Fortnite
Mm.
or NBA 2K or Call of Duty. And technology has made it so that you can be in your house, but you can connect with your friends while they're at their houses playing the same video game. And kids are up all night playing video games, not doing homework, not reading,
Mm.
but they're playing video games all night and doing poorly in school because of it.
And the price is.
And the price is, I think parents need to become a little more stricter in what time their kids go to bed, how much screen time they have, and where's their homework, where's their reading time.
Indeed. I can remember, I think from the time he was a baby, I read to my son every night before he went to sleep. And so his reading skills, as I found out, are up there, and they have been. So, hey, so tell us about some of your other books that you have published and stuff. Because we touched on My Little Brothers. Tell us more.
Well, the book, as far as children's books go, the story of how I actually began writing for children. I worked in social services professionally for all of my professional career, actually. And some time ago, I'm not saying how many years ago, but some time ago, I was asked to be a mentor to a 6-year-old boy. This 6-year-old boy had no male role models in his life. He lived in a single parent home with a mom. He had a sister. He had a female babysitter. His teacher was a female, no male in his life. And so I spent like a year with him, trying to, just give him a time to spend with a male. And as our time was coming to an end, I wanted to give him something to remember me by. And to this point, I've only written poetry. So I wrote him a poem that I had an illustrator put pictures to, and became my first children's book called I Can Do Anything.
Mm.
And throughout that book, it's a rhyming book that focuses on numbers, colors, and shapes. However, every few pages, I reinforce the message of I can do anything.
Mm.
And, I thought, hey, this is pretty cool. I only printed maybe 200 copies, I think, that first run, because I really, I thought it was cool to do, but I didn't think, I don't know, I underestimated what it would do. And that was the beginning of parents and teachers telling me, hey, this is pretty cool. This is something that we've been searching for. My child loves this, et cetera, et cetera. And it got me to thinking, wow, maybe I'm onto something.
Hey.
And it just so happens through mentoring other children, other boys, as a matter of fact, that gave me the idea for my second children's book. And actually, it showed me, even back then, that there are critical things that our kids are missing, and they're being passed along grade by grade, not getting everything that they should get. For my second children's book, I was mentoring a 5th grade and 7th grade pair of brothers.
Mm.
And part of our time together would be going to the library. And just so happens one off Saturday we were together, and I asked them, hey, what is this? basically I was asking them some second grade science questions on gas, liquid, and solids. And they, fifth and seventh grade, could not tell me the answers to the questions I asked them.
Hmm.
That unnerved me. That hurt me so much. But that inspired me to write a book about that. So that's my second book, Alicia's Big Test,
Hmm.
which introduces solids, liquids, and gases, but also is done in a fun way.
So would this be your considered part of your sunflower series?
Yes, that's the second book in the Sunflower series, and I Can Do Anything is the first book. And so we move on. What I've chosen to do is I've started very young, preschool age, and book by book, I've gotten older. So one of the last books that I did is definitely more it's called Captain Candace. It's kind of like a comic book kind of feel where we talk about a lot of facts about the earth, a lot of the extremes of the earth, but we also talk about respect for womanhood, as the lead character is a girl and she runs into some sexism from the male characters in the book.
Uh-huh. Question, do you have any of your books included some facets of Black history?
No, and I got to get to that. I got to get to that. I haven't gone into it. It's been mostly what we call SEL, social emotional learning,
Right.
but I have not gone into the history portions yet.
The operative word is yet.
Absolutely.
So uh, when I think of when I was reading about my children's books, um, okay, say what can parents do to build a library? Because it's one thing that you haven't seen is to say having those personal libraries at home. So I would ask this too. So far as Black-owned bookstores, what do we have in Chicago so far as Black-owned bookstores?
There used to be quite a number of Black-owned bookstores, but I think with the advancement of the internet and Kindle and things like that, a few of them shut down. I think currently, to my knowledge, there are, I can think of two right off the top. Chicago's such a big city. Um, and I remember when there were like five or six, but I think there may be only two to three now.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because I think about how we support the community, and it's definitely it's about literacy. So looking at this, what is it? What do you see in the future of the Black Child Book Fair?
The Black Child Book Fair is definitely exploring and growing, and we'll go to more cities, more than it has before this year, 2025. And my goal is to make the cities that we go to become an annual event in each city.
Mhm.
And we've managed to do that in Chicago, in Memphis, Atlanta, Dallas are all annual events. Uh, so far this year, we've gone to, for the first time, we were just in Oakland. Actually, this weekend, we'll be in Cincinnati,
Ah,
first time. And we are returning to Charlotte. We'll be going to Columbia, South Carolina. So the goal is to get into a city and hopefully make the right connections to make the events annual. And Minnesota is on that list. So hopefully we can make that annual as well.
Indeed, let's see. Hey, we here in the Twin Cities area, yes, we welcome you.
I'm glad to hear that. And my authors are very excited about coming there.
Oh,
Very excited.
well, hey, trust and believe. We have the word out, and can say if the Black Authors Expo is any indication, that their parents and stuff will be out there in attendance.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So, um, I have a question to ask you, and this is something that I ask all of my authors and stuff. What advice or words would you give to your 13-year-old self from where you are today?
Whew. That's man, so many things.
Go ahead. We got time.
I think first and foremost, I would probably tell myself back then to be no to study harder. I think that's probably something I would say to myself because I think I was a decent high school student. Um, but there were definitely some points of education that, were hard. Like I gravitated towards words, towards English, but math was kicking my tail.
Mm.
Math was kicking my when I got to college. Oh boy. Math really kicked my tail in college. So I would probably tell myself to study just a bit harder. Not that I didn't ditch school or did poorly, but there are a few things that I probably could have done better in. So that's number one. And number two, I think probably would be, since I got into writing, and maybe it happened the way it was supposed to, but I probably would have told myself to write more. Yeah. There are so many. I have a few projects that, I got a few pages in here and I, couldn't figure out where to go from there. So I've set it down until I can figure out where to go. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I've often asked myself those questions from where I am today. Yeah. And I can remember maybe just a few years ago, my college had its 50th anniversary of its Black Student Union, telling Black college students, and they asked me to say a few words. One of them I remember, two of them I remember was, you're never too young or too old to follow your dreams. And also, believe in dreams, never give up. And they said, when you achieve your dreams, find a way to pay it forward. So, in what ways have you seen Black Child Book Fair pay it forward?
Well, we say here in Chicago, Chicago is the base of operations, and we have the largest of all the book fairs that we do. Chicago is the largest, and we have been fortunate enough to receive donations where we can actually give some free books to students, to young people that come. And that's one of the ways that we pay it forward. I think that's the biggest way that we are able to give free stuff and things that will impact and have some effect on a kid's imagination or education.
And we out here say, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So I was, as you were talking about different things about these, we talking about video games and being all preoccupied with those sort of things and not doing the work and stuff. One thing that came up with me when I was talking with a colleague was that you have actually my son talked about one time one of the kids when he was in school couldn't read. They were struggling to read, and instead the kids in the class were laughing and stuff like that. As probably as parents, especially what can parents do with this kind of situation where either where this is allowed to happen, especially when the kid's struggling?
I think, first of all, parents should know where their kids are. You need to know where is my kid academically, ability wise, where are they? And if they are lacking, wanting, not doing as well, on level, whatever you want to call it, find a tutor. Find a tutor. And again, as I said about the video game situation, turn that sucker off. Turn that sucker off at a particular time, or not, or don't turn it on at all until they reach grade level. If it's possible, if they don't have any disabilities preventing them from being on grade level, then until they reach that, they shouldn't be allowed to participate in video gaming. Video games are going to be there. But the longer a kid is not on grade level, the harder it will be for them to get there. Because schools will keep a kid, maybe a year. If they are not on grade level, they may put them back for a year. But how long is it going to really take, and how much effort are they going to put into it? That has to really be a parent-involved situation. My parents were involved. The video, and when you're involved, when the parents are involved, then eventually the kid will routinely do what they're supposed to do. And for us, we were not just students, but student athletes. And after school, before we did anything else, we sat down at the kitchen table and did homework. So we went to school, we went to practice, we got home, we sat at the kitchen table, ate, did our homework, and then we fooled around. And that's the way it has to be. You have to instill that in the child. That one of the lessons that I work with middle school kids in counseling, and I tell them, your grades, your education right now is your income. And when you reach a certain point, when you reach 18 years old, that will show how much money you're really ready to make. Because your parents are going to start looking at you a lot differently at 18 than they do at 12. And your responsibilities, etc., they're going to change drastically. Mom and daddy aren't going to keep feeding you.
Got that right.
So you have to be ready and able to take care of yourself.
That and the church says amen. So last but not least, where can our readers and our viewers purchase your books?
You can go to our website, blackchildbookfair.com, and there is a tab on that website that says books. You can hit that tab that says books, and you will see all the children's books that I have written, and you can order them, and they'll be at your doorstep before you know it.
Hey, that sounds like a winner. Well,
Mhm.
Brother Darryl, I thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing. Thank you for the invaluable knowledge and wisdom, and especially when it comes to our children and the literacy of our children, and coming through Black Child Book Fair, then the books that you've read, the poetry you've written, all that was part of your unique voice, and I thank you.
Yes, sir. I appreciate your time and thank you. And I look forward to seeing you again when we get to Minneapolis.
Got that? Yeah, you will see me. All right. This is W.D. Foster Graham from the Conversation with Al McFarlane's Book Chat Thursday. Thank you for tuning in, and see you on the next go round.